Thank you, Herman. Thanks for that introduction. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Tiffany Shabanian. I'm the MRAS, or Market Research as a Service Program Manager. I'm joined today by Christy Wilbur, who's the MRAS Branch Chief, Jennifer Crook, who's the MRAS Program Manager, and Sandra Brown, who is one of our MRAS builders, and they'll be here to answer your questions in the Q&A box today. So we encourage you today to put your questions in the Q&A box and not in the chat. That way, all the attendees can see your questions and also the responses. And I think it'll make for a better presentation today. And I guarantee you're going to learn a lot. So I'm going to talk to you today about market research and how we make market research easy and how GSA enhances our industry partnerships. Without industry responses to our MRAS market research requests, we wouldn't get the kind of data that we provide to our customers. So we're going to get started. I'm going to share a lot of information, and like Herman said, the materials will be available to you afterwards, including my speaking notes. And I think you'll get a lot of useful tips on how to respond to these market research requests. So today, I'll be speaking to you about market research in the acquisition process, GSA's Market Research as a Service, or the MRAS program, and how, as an industry partner, to successfully respond to requests for information, or RFIs, and how to make market research more effective for our federal partners, as well as build on our industry partnerships. And so the objectives of the course today will be to provide you with a better understanding of why market research is conducted. I'll give you an overview of the MRAS program, the Market Research as a Service program, and its successes. And I'll talk about how we conduct market research and how to effectively complete GSA's market research surveys, or RFIs. And then I'll talk about how we ensure that federal agencies get accurate information about your business, what we actually do with the results. And then finally, I'll review some reminders and tips, and I'll include some resources at the end that I think will be very helpful too. So let's talk about market research and why it's important. Why does GSA offer this service? Acquisition professionals in the federal workforce conduct different types of market research throughout the acquisition process. And this includes various procedures like reviewing historical documents, looking at previous contracts, conducting Amazon or Google searches, watching YouTube, doing GSA Advantage reviews, and sources sought. But what's most important here for these professionals is for them to have a shared understanding of the questions they're trying to get answered. So sometimes the questions are all about the requirements, sometimes they're about the capabilities, and other times they're all about the contract and identifying small businesses. Market research activities are really designed around what questions the acquisition professionals need answered. And the information and feedback that you provide as our industry partners really help customers to visualize the competition and socioeconomic data of the marketplace. And that really helps them with their acquisition planning going forward. So why does GSA provide this type of service? This Market Research as a Service, or MRAS program, why do we provide this and help agencies conduct market research? What we're trying to do is start a conversation and give our federal partners data that focuses on their specific requirements, so we can be sure that we have all the information they need to make informed acquisition decisions. And we rely on industry partners like you to reply to these requests for information surveys with timely and relevant data. And when talking about market research, the federal acquisition regulations, which these acquisition professionals follow throughout the acquisition process, says that market research is conducted to determine if commercial items or non-developmental items are available to meet the government's needs. And in the FAR, the Federal Acquisition Regulation, there are about 6 instances where market research is necessary. And this is why this program has become so important for our federal partners. So market research is conducted before developing new requirements or before soliciting offers that may be above or below the acquisition threshold. And market research is also necessary before soliciting offers for acquisitions that may lead to or could lead to consolidation or bundling. And here, agencies are really trying to understand the impacts on small businesses. And market research is also done before awarding a task or delivery order under an IDIQ contract, which is an indefinite delivery, indefinite quantity contract for non-commercial items that may be above the simplified acquisition threshold. And finally, market research is done on an ongoing basis, as I mentioned before, throughout the acquisition process. And it's really to effectively identify the capabilities of small businesses and new entrants into federal contracting. So how do acquisition professionals use the market research data they collect? There are several instances that are called out in the federal acquisition regulation. And basically how to summarize it is that market research is done to understand if sources are available, if there are commercial sources or can those commercial sources be modified. And then market research is also used to determine if commercial items can be used at a component level and looking at market standards in those situations as well. And finally, market research is done to understand if there are any environmental concerns or if there's consolidation or bundling, and if there are electronic accessibility needs that to be considered. So to achieve all this sounds like a lot of data that needs to be collected. Customers in the FAR are told not to ask for too much from industry so as not to burden them, but they're also reminded to consult the Office of Small and Disadvantaged Business Utilization, or the OSBU office. And the most comprehensive part of the federal acquisition regulation when it comes to market research are the procedures. And there's a long list, and there really are no mandatory procedures. So it's giving acquisition professionals a lot of leeway as far as how to conduct market research. And, you know, I'm not going to go through everything on the list, but basically it includes contacting knowledgeable individuals in the government, looking at results of past market research data for similar results. Customers do publish formal requests like RFIs, requests for information, and that's common, but it's not mandatory. And then also acquisition professionals can query government-wide databases. They can participate in interactive or online communication with industry. They can also obtain source lists and review catalogs, and finally conduct interchange meetings or hold pre-solicitation conferences. So there are a lot of different procedures, and through this program, what we're trying to do is streamline the approach and make it easier for both our customers and our industry partners. So what is MRAS? MRAS stands for Market Research as a Service. It's a GSA market research service that we offer to agencies to help them understand existing markets and how their requirements fit into them. So with these market research techniques, we collect data mostly through RFIs to build data sets that help maximize agencies' outcomes. MRAS really uses the latest research techniques through robotics process automation to help agencies visualize the competition and help to streamline the market research process. The real reason that customers come to us is to help them with their market research is that it reduces the acquisition time overall. As I said, we've streamlined the approach, we've standardized the process, and we've made it a lot easier for them to put together these RFIs. And all this is good news for vendors like you, because we help give small businesses visibility in front of potential customers as well. So MRAS and market research and how it's related. When do agencies use MRAS services? Agencies, both federal, state, and local, will come to us and ask them for help with their market research prior to soliciting offers and prior to award. And just a note, our MRAS, or market research as a service tools, which I'll go into a little bit more detail about what we offer, it's not mandatory. It's optional for these customers. And the reason why they come back to us over and over is that we've made it really easy for them to put in a request for market research help, to get an RFI out, and then to get that data collected in a really easy to read report back to them. So they come back to us again and again because of those reasons. So when you're thinking about, you know, what is MRAS, what do we actually offer? MRAS, Market Research as a Service, is a free service. We provide these services at no cost to federal, state, and local agencies. And these agencies can choose to work with us when conducting market research services. As you heard earlier, there are so many procedures for conducting market research. This is just one of the tools that they can use. The MRAS program currently offers 4 different services. The first one is more product focused, and the others are more focused on service types of requirements. So the first service that we offer is the GSA Advantage Product Market Search, which lets customers search up to 20,000 items on GSA Advantage at once. And this is market research for products only. And then the second and the third are for services. Second one is Rapid Review, which tells our customers if the requirements fits within the scope of an existing GSA acquisition solution, and they get results really quickly within 24 to 48 hours. And the third is the more popular tool that we offer is our MRAS RFI, Request for Information, and then the corresponding market research report. So this type of market research targets the right contractors on the right contracts, and it consolidates all the data into one report with visuals. And then finally, we do offer industry outreach. So we really encourage our customers to attend our MRAS industry sessions that we have on a monthly basis. And that way they can connect with industry partners like yourselves and talk about RFIs that they may have open and get some valuable feedback from you. And I'll share the dates that we have upcoming for those monthly sessions. We usually have anywhere from 150 to sometimes over 300 participants. I believe in the last one we had about 400. And it's set up in similarly as today's session where you can ask questions, but I think it's really helpful to see what other industry folks are talking about as well. Just to show you why the program has been popular and successful, overall, to date, we've supported over 350 customers over the last 3 years, and we've produced over $36 billion worth of projects. And one important note, if you're wondering why this is important and why you should participate, as a potential vendor in the MRAS Market Research Program, 50% or more of the requirements we research through this MRAS program actually get awarded to a GSA contract holder. So participating in the program is really giving you visibility. And we really understand the importance of collaborating with industry partners. So we continue to hold those monthly sessions and provide you support along the way. I wanted to share with you a recent success story from one of our customers. We service customers across the board, Air Force, Army, Navy. In this case, the Air Force reached out to us and they were looking for assistance with a requirement they had for the development and sustainment of the command and control incident management and emergency response application. And so what they did was they reached out to their local GSA customer service director or CSD, and they talked about the requirement, and we were able to customize an RFI for this particular requirement. And then we collected responses from our industry partners, and we were able to deliver to the customer a list of 14 small businesses that could potentially meet their requirement. And so in this case, we really saved our customer time, and we gave them a broader view of industry partners that are capable of meeting their requirement. This is just a visualization to show you how the program works. I'll get into more detail about the RFI surveys and how you can respond to them more effectively. Basically, with this program, we're enabled by technology to give results to our customers in as little as a day, but most times in 3 weeks or less, especially when it comes to our RFIs. And we'll work with our customers and their customer service director through GSA to understand their requirement, build a custom market research approach, and then depending on the customer's needs, we engage with industry in a really efficient manner. And then we collect the data and we give the results in a really easy to read report to the customer. So now that I talked a little bit about why market research is conducted, let's talk about how we conduct market research and how GSA is helping to streamline the process. With this MRAS program, with our RFIs, we put together surveys for these RFIs, and we use commercially available software to help our customers conduct that market research. And we follow a standard. That way, industry folks like yourselves really know what to expect when responding to these questions. And ultimately, when developing these market research techniques for our customers, we focus on how we want to actually visualize the data based on the questions that are asked. So that way we can provide a better understanding of the marketplace and the capabilities of potential vendors. I'm not sure how many folks on the call have actually responded to an MRAS RFI, but you may or may not have seen what our technical questions look like or what the RFI looks like. This is an actual screenshot on the right of what the technical questions look like. Our questions with these RFI surveys are built around, again, how we want to visualize the data for our customers. So wherever possible, we try to ask yes or no questions, and then we ask industry to expand in a streamlined capability statement, which is typically 3 pages or less, and sometimes it's optional. And then also we try to predefine what we think the answer might be. So for instance, if we want to know how much a contractor might subcontract out, we offer responses that include estimates. If we want you to think about labor categories, we may give you the categories and ask you to rank them around. So there are a lot of options as far as how these RFIs ask specific questions, and it's all based on the requirement and the particular need of the customer. And we do this all through an online tool that allows the MRAS team and the customer to customize the questions and make it easier for you to respond. That's really the end goal here. You know, we don't want to burden you with unnecessary questions. So these questions are reviewed by customer service directors and also by the MRAS builder who puts these surveys together. This is an actual screenshot of what the market research report actually looks like. And so you can see that there's a lot of information here. After we receive your responses with the MRAS RFI, we try to produce really easy to understand reports that rack and stack those data points and give the best visualizations to the acquisition professionals so that they can create better acquisition strategies. And your answers to these surveys really help provide these useful visuals where we can highlight the number of interested parties, as you can see on the top there, and show the specific contract holders, their socioeconomic status, and the business size. And we do share your feedback and capability files that you attach to these surveys as well. And we provide all this data in a really easy to read report. So all the information that the customer might need is right there in one place. So talking about the results of these market research requests and what the benefits are both for industry and the customer. The benefit of responding to these RFIs is that it summarizes your capabilities and your ability to meet the customer requirement in a really easy to understand report. And it's also a way for us to summarize your feedback so that these acquisition professionals can further define or clarify their requirements when they need to. And in addition, we do send you future requests for information that fall under GSA contracts that you hold. And by responding to these RFIs, we provide you with a GSA and an agency point of contact that you can reach out to and ask any further questions related to the requirement. And finally, as I mentioned earlier, responding to an MRAS RFI can generate more business. And according to our current statistics, 50% or more of the requirements that we've researched through this MRAS program are actually awarded to GSA contract holders. And as far as for our customers, we provide reports that they can use in narratives for acquisition planning and reports to small businesses. And this helps to provide our federal partners with an outlook on whether or not there would be competition or socioeconomic participation. Is it likely? So in the next few slides, I'm going to take you through some screenshots that show what these MRAS RFIs actually look like and provide you some tips when responding. So I'm sure everybody's thinking this right now. Where do you find out about MRAS RFIs? All MRAS RFIs are posted on GSA's eBuy site as a request for quote. And just be sure to understand that even though it's listed as an RFQ, it is listed as a sources selection, and it's listed under the applicable SINs and contracts for that requirement. Because these RFIs are listed under a specific SIN or contract, specific to that requirement, you'll only see the RFI if you are listed as a GSA vendor under that particular SIN and contract for that RFI. So if you're listed there, you'll get notified via email about our newly posted MRAS RFIs. So to be sure that you don't miss out on these email notifications, just make sure that the email that's associated with your company and eLibrary is current and up to date, as all RFI requests will be sent to that email listed there. And then after you respond to a survey, an MRAS RFI, you'll receive an email confirmation of your responses. And so you'll want to make sure that the email rfi@research.gsa.gov, where those correspondence come from, check your spam folder, make sure that you don't miss those emails, make sure that email address is in your approved email list, so that way all the correspondence won't go to the spam folder. If you haven't received confirmation email, you can always email us at rfi@research.gsa.gov. We can have the email resent. I'll also share a help request at the end of the presentation, a help request form that you can fill out in case you're missing that email as well. One note, this is a new feature, speaking of eBuy and RFIs that are posted there. There's a new feature in eBuy I just want to bring to your attention. The screenshot on the right shows what I'm talking about. Vendors can notify a customer that they are interested in a request for information or a request for quote by selecting a new interested button that's circled there on the top in blue. And just note that with checking this feature, it does not mean that you'll be included with market research reports to customers for these particular MRAS RFIs. That interested button doesn't have anything to do with MRAS RFIs. If you want to be considered as a potential vendor for these MRAS RFIs, you'll need to click on the link in the survey and actually respond to the posting. And that's the only way customers will see your response just with these MRAS RFIs. As I mentioned before, MRAS RFIs are not mandatory. Customers can post them on their own if they'd like, or they can come to GSA's MRAS team and we can post it for them. So you'll always see a survey link for the ones that are MRAS RFIs. So far in this presentation, I've only talked to you about how we typically format our RFI surveys, but I'll now be sharing with you some screenshots of what the surveys look like and offer some tips when filling out these types of requests. All of our MRAS RFI surveys, you have a link in there where you can download a copy of the survey in its entirety, including all the questions that were asked. And that helps you to fill out the survey better just by knowing what's being asked of you. So carefully review the requirement description that's in the opening paragraph, and be sure to take note of that response's due date. As I mentioned before, you'll receive a confirmation email with a copy of your responses once you submit it. And if you haven't gotten it, you can email us at rfi@research.gsa.gov, and we can send you the survey again or send you a new link if you think you've missed something, perhaps. But just make sure that you ask us for help before the deadline so that we can actually do something about it. Because we do typically turn around the responses to these surveys very quickly. So within 24 to 48 hours, our customers will actually get a report based on the responses to this particular survey. So that response due date is really important. And to make sure, right below that, you'll see there's also a link to the draft requirements document, which you can click on and download either performance work statement or statement of work. And so, that'd be important to review that before responding to the RFI as well. So in this section here, we do ask you for your company and point of contact information. Be sure you fill these out accurately. Where it's asking for URLs only, make sure it's only a URL. Make sure that the email address that you enter here is an email that you can access, and make sure you check your spam folder to make sure that that confirmation email or point of contact email isn't missed. This section of the survey asks about your business size. So be sure to select other if you are not a small business in this section. You can select multiple choices in the next question about your socioeconomic designation. And this information is important because we do break this out and highlight it, as you saw in the screenshot before of what the market research report looks like. It's all based on this question. I wanted to share some reminders about selecting your socioeconomic designation as well in this section. Just make sure to use the socioeconomic designation as listed on your GSA contract accurately. This is because customers use that information to set aside to that specific socioeconomic category. And just note that using incorrect socioeconomic designations will give you 0% chance to quote that requirement. So your company won't show up in eBuy for that particular requirement if you use an incorrect designation. And finally, leaving out socioeconomic designations that you do hold really reduces the chance of possible set aside that you could otherwise increase your probability of a win. So this is really important to be accurate when responding to this question. With technical questions, I briefly talked about it before. Just try to answer them as accurately as possible. You can always explain further in your capability statement, and keep open-ended questions as concise and relevant to the requirement as possible. Again, you can always add more detail in your capability statement as well. We do ask this question in all of our surveys. Based on the information provided, would your company submit an offer if this requirement was issued under your GSA contract? By selecting yes to this question, your responses will be included in a report to the customer agency. And we also do ask if you provide the product commercially, and then we summarize this data in the report to the customer as well. With this section of the RFI, you'll want to make sure that you select all the GSA contract types that apply. Multiple choices can be selected here. Just note that non-GSA contract holder information will be filtered out of our report because we only research markets within the GSA contract marketplace. With the NAICS and SIN number, be sure that you select the best option. Be sure to use the selected choices whenever possible instead of choosing other or typing in a response if that's available. It's always your best bet to choose one of the options. You can always expand in your capability statement as well. This really helps to avoid discrepancies and redundancies. So I mentioned in the earlier slides that we do provide feedback to our customers. So it's really important here, provide honest feedback whenever possible. We do share these, we don't filter out the feedback. It really helps our customers to ensure their statement of work or performance work statement accurately captures the requirement. And in this section, you can also ask any additional questions that you might have about the requirement, and we will forward that to the customer. It is up to the customer to answer any of your questions listed here, but the feedback section is very visible in the reports to our customers. When it comes to the capability information, we do ask for a capability statement. In this section, you can provide additional information from the questions that you answered above if you need to provide clarification. Just be sure that with the capability statement that you include relevant experience in your statement and address any questions that were listed in the description where it says, please include up to 3 relevant projects. There may be additional questions underneath that where you see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. There may be a few more additional questions that the customer might want to ask. So be sure to list relevant experience that you have within the last 5 years. With capability statements, general capability statements really aren't useful in this instance. If you don't have the relevant experience within the last 5 years, you can specify what experience you do have and the years in which they occurred. Once the survey closes, you'll receive, as I mentioned before, a point of contact information for any additional questions or concerns. And then once you submit your response, you'll receive a confirmation with a copy as well. And this is what it looks like when it says you're submitting your response. You're going to get company information and follow up. You can follow up with them regarding the status of the acquisition. decision, but by clicking submit, you're also agreeing to have the information you provided shared with other government agencies. So when we say we streamline the process, we do have previous market research data that we provide to other customers if they have a similar requirement, and especially if they're under a time crunch. So when you're submitting your response, you're not only getting visibility in front of this particular customer for this particular requirement, you are potentially getting visibility in front of other customers who may have similar requirements who also could ask to see this report. So what happens after you reply to one of our MRAS RFIs? As I mentioned before, you'll get an automated generated email from rfi@research.gsa.gov, and that will include a confirmation of your response and a copy of your responses. And then we send a customized market research report that summarizes your responses to the agency acquisition professionals. And in these reports, we also include any feedback that you provide. And then finally, we do provide you with the agency and GSA point of contact if you have any further questions regarding the requirement. And I know we do get a lot of questions from industry partners about the status of the requirement. In a dream world, we would love to be able to give you a report of the status of all the RFIs that we put out there. Unfortunately, we're not there yet, but we do understand the importance of getting a response on the status of the acquisition. You can reach out to the agency point of contact. It is up to them to respond. We do encourage them to keep that line of communication open with industry, but we also provide you with the GSA customer service director, and you can also reach out to them if you haven't gotten a response, perhaps from the agency. They're also a good resource. So in the following slides, I'll share with you some additional tips for responding to these MRAS RFIs, so some tips and reminders. In some of our previous monthly MRAS industry training sessions, we get a lot of questions about the capability statement. So we'll go over some tips. Basically, you have two opportunities to include a capability statement. You can provide it in the company information section, and there's a field called capability statement URL, or you can upload it at the end of the survey with a more detailed and specific one. Just be sure to remember that you can only upload one attachment, so it's best to combine all the files that you want to submit into one document. And this really is your chance to provide more detailed and specific information on any technical questions that you answered as no. You can expand upon those in your capability statement. And then you can also elaborate on any additional open-ended questions that were asked in the survey. Maybe you ran out of space in the little block. You can always add some more information there. And just remember, sometimes this is optional, but we do encourage that you attach a capability statement. I just wanted to provide some additional information regarding some common questions that we typically see from industry regarding attachments, POC information too, and questions about the acquisition strategy and extensions. Regarding attachments, please note to always include attachments and capability statements in your RFI response if you're able to. If you send us attachments or capability statements via email, they will not be included in the report seen by buyers. So, that due date, having the attachments there in time will guarantee that the customer will see those attachments. If you send them to us by email, we're not going to be forwarding those to the customer. As we said in earlier slides, we try to provide all the information in a report all together in one report, and so they don't have to go searching through emails to find all the relevant information. So just try to respond with RFIs with the information that you do have at the time. And once you receive the customer point of contact information, you can forward those attachments to that POC if they weren't included in your original response. However, I don't recommend that because I'm sure our customers are getting lots of emails from different vendors, and it can easily be missed. Regarding point of contact information, I mentioned that we do send you the agency POC information, and we send that to you in email within 5 to 10 days after the RFI closes. So if you still need the agency POC information, you can email us that you lost the email. but just make sure you check your spam folder and you're aware of the email or POC that you listed when filling out the RFI. If you have any questions for the agency POC, listing them in the optional feedback section is really a great way for them to see it. We share that feedback with all of our customers in the report, so it's a guarantee that they'll see that question. Just be aware that the questions that you ask are up to the agency to answer once the RFI closes. And as I mentioned before, we're not able at this time to provide information regarding the expected acquisition strategy or the expected RFP, request for proposal date. So you would need to contact the agency POC for this information. But as I mentioned, if you don't get a response from them, also contacting your GSA customer service director is another great option. Regarding extensions or updates, no extensions will be granted. As I mentioned, we do provide these market research reports based on these surveys very quickly. So within 24 to 48 hours, we're sending the report to the customer. This is part of our services and what we promise the customer when they submit their request. So please try to respond with whatever information you have available by that due date. And if you need to reopen your RFI, we'll need your business name, your email address, and the subject description of the RFI from eBuy. If you have the RFQ number, that's even more helpful, but it's not mandatory. As always, as I mentioned, you will receive a confirmation email with a copy of your responses. Again, if you don't receive that, or you need to update your responses prior to the close date, you can always email us at rfi@research.gsa.gov. I just wanted to share with you some ways that you can ask for help if you experience issues with responding to MRAS RFIs. I mentioned the RFI mailbox, rfi@research.gsa.gov, or there is an industry help request form which you can fill out. So when this presentation is shared with you, you'll have that live link to click if you need additional assistance with getting either the POC information or to update your responses, or if you have trouble accessing the RFI survey, we can help you there. Again, just try to include, simple information like your business name, your email, a description of the RFI from eBuy, and the RFQ number, which isn't mandatory, but really helps us to find it more quickly. So as I come to the end of my presentation, I just want to share that we do conduct monthly industry training, and these are the remaining dates for the year. The next one is on April 25th, and they're usually from 12 to 1 Eastern, the last Tuesday of the month. Once you register for one of them, you'll get reminders for the others. And as I said, this is a great opportunity to hear about the MRAS program. It basically goes through pretty much the same information here. We do have a PTAC representative who also joins the call, and sometimes we'll have like guest speakers. We're hoping to have more participation from our customers. So if you attend one of these sessions, you'll also get the opportunity to ask questions in the Q&A box. And usually the Q&A is pretty active. I would say the last time we had over 50 questions. So industry folks who attend might ask questions that maybe you didn't think of or you didn't know was like a concern. So I really think it's helpful to join those sessions and see what industry is talking about and get all the updated information about the MRAS program. Before I conclude my presentation, I just wanted to share some additional resources. I do encourage that you reach out to your local GSA Customer Service Director, or CSD, if you have any questions about the GSA acquisition process or about a current requirement that might be out there. And you can find them by visiting www.gsa.gov/CSD. If you need help in responding to an MRAS RFI, we have the help request form there that you can access. And I also included the link to our industry training again here. If there are any questions about the material that I talked about today, you can always email us at rfi@research.gsa.gov as well. And you can visit gsa.gov/MRAS for more information about the program. And yeah, that's concluding my presentation here. So I just wanted to close out by talking about what our customers are saying. So these are some quotes from our actual customers who use the program. We're really providing an innovative approach to market research using our survey software. We've automated a lot of our processes so we can provide the data faster. We're always looking for ways to improve, and we do that through valuable feedback from both our customers and industry partners. So we really encourage, if you have a suggestion of how we can make our program better, especially when it comes to responding to these RFIs, you can always email us at rfi@research.gsa.gov, or you can attend one of our MRAS training sessions and bring it up in the Q&A. A lot of the improvements we've made have been from feedback from our industry partners. So we hear you. We're always trying to make this process better, and it really comes down to responses from industry. So we really value that partnership. So this concludes my presentation, and I'm hoping that we have some questions that folks have asked that we can discuss if we have some time.
Well, Tiffany, I'll leave it up to the rest of your MRAS team to see if they want to bring up any commonly asked questions. But just wanted to say thanks for the training, and thanks to the rest of the MRAS team for answering the questions. At my last look, I see that nearly 40 questions were asked and answered. So thanks for that. Really, really appreciate it. Industry partners, as I mentioned earlier, the recording will be saved to the 8A Stars Free Resource Center for quick reference, and the presentation, the frequently asked questions, and Tiffany's speaker notes, they're all going to be emailed to your 8A Stars 3 group email box. So look out for that. We'll get that to you this week. Thank you for your participation. And this concludes today's GSA MRAS training for 8A Stars 3 industry partners. We'll stick around for a few more minutes to see if anybody wants to ask any questions to the Q&A pod. And when I say for a few more minutes, about 4 or 5 more minutes. So if you have any questions, please go ahead and ask it. If not, thank you for participating.
Thank you, Herman. Jen, Christy, were there any questions that you saw that we should bring up and talk about pretty quickly?
Yeah, one that we've seen a couple times, Tiffany, was asking like how long the RFIs are usually posted for.
Okay. Do you want to read? Yeah, I was going to say, do you want to read the response and then I can elaborate?
Yeah. So usually the RFIs, when we post them, we work with the customer and the GSA point of contact. So really, on how long we can have it posted really depends on the customer's timeline. But for most of them, we always try and recommend at least 5 to 10 days for the requirement to be posted in eBuy.
Yeah, and I think, like you said, it depends on the complexity of the requirement. We definitely have that line of communication open between the MRAS builder, the GSA customer service director, and the customer. So the GSA CSD is working really closely with the customer. We can go back to them and say, hey, we saw this really complex RFI. If we can we keep it open for 14 days or however long we think would be best to give industry enough time to respond, especially if they're asking for like detailed, open-ended questions. And we also let them know that it gives the industry partners more time to respond, so they may get better responses with having it open a little bit longer. But as I mentioned before too, like having the market research report that goes out really quickly after the RFI closes also helps with the timeline.
Thank you. And then one of the other questions that we can maybe bring up is, we had a couple of questions about like who we're posting to. Are we just posting to stars? Are we posting to stars and MAS? I think the biggest thing is usually when we receive a request for an MRAS RFI, the GSA point of contact reviews the requirement to confirm what contracts might be able to meet the customer's needs. So on any of our RFIs, we can actually post to multiple contracts in that one RFI. So, as stars vendors, you guys might receive it under stars, but yeah, you will also see that it's also went out to MAS It can go out to Oasis, it can go out to Vets 2, any of the GWACs. It just really depends on the requirement and where those requirements are going to fit. So we don't just post one contract on each RFI. Usually there's multiple.
Yeah, and that's a good point, Christy. So if you want to know who else or what other contracts we posted to, when you respond to the RFI survey, you'll see the section where you choose what contract you have, and you'll see the list of contracts that we sent it out to. So that will be your list there. So you know what GSA contract holders we sent it out based on that list.
Right. Thanks, Stephanie.
Sure.
Let's see. The other one is when they respond to the MRAS RFIs, reaching out to the POCs, they're not getting a response back from the customer.
Yeah, that's a tough one. I know it's something that we're working on coming up with a solution, but I think also we encourage, like every time we do an MRAS session with our customers, we stress how important it is to build that partnership, whether it's responding to questions in the feedback section or questions about the acquisition strategy. Even having our customers join our industry session is all about providing as much information as possible. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Christy.
No, I think the only thing really I'd follow up with on that, like when, unfortunately we don't have that information readily available at this time, but when you are following up with the customers and you're emailing them, make sure that you're giving them time to review that report. I know that MRAS, we have the turnaround time of, within 24 hours to get them that report. That doesn't always mean that the customers are reviewing it the same day that we're getting it back to them. So allow them a couple of weeks, at least, to review that report with their GSA point of contact, before you start doing any type of follow-up emails to them, asking them for statuses and which direction they might be going.
Yeah, thanks, Christy.
Sandra, agendas, did I miss any? Do you want to bring up any other ones?
Okay. Well, lots of great questions. I really appreciate everybody's participation. I hope you got something out of this session. And I think, as I was mentioning to Herman earlier before we started today, that the materials that he's going to share with you is sort of going to be your study guide for when responding to these RFIs. And we welcome feedback. So we'd love to hear from you if you have any suggestions on how we can improve too. So thank you, everybody, for your time.